Hi, it's Graham from Concept Music here, and today I've got Ben with me, Ben Marvin. Welcome,
Morning,
Ben.
Graham.
Good to have you on board. And we're here to have a talk about Ben's dad's guitar, really, I suppose, and a few other things about the shop. A very, very special instrument here that we've had on display in the shop for the last couple of weeks, and most people just walk past thinking it's a Fender Custom Shop relic guitar, but in actual fact, it's an original 1958 Fiesta Red Stratocaster. Is that the colour?
It is, I believe. There's a bit of confusion sometimes, especially it fades a bit, and some people say it's there's various shades of pink that they come up with, but it's definitely Fiesta Red, in case you're wondering.
And it's definitely a 1958?
It's definitely a 58 Strat. It was purchased in 81, I believe, and then he used it for all recording and live work through until about 89, when he started getting his signature models from Fender. So there's a few other things. The pickups, if you notice, they're not the originals. That was changed for a recording session, which was, I think, in the early 2000s. The originals were proving rather noisy during a recording session. So he had these Kidman noiseless pickups put in for that. And I actually don't think it's been played again since. So it has been sitting in a case for a very long time. So hence, they're still in it. The original pickups are still around. So for all those purists among you going, well, it's not the original pickups. Well, they're not, but there you go. They could be if you wanted them to be.
So Ben, this is for all intents and purposes exactly the same as the original one that he got from Cliff. What happened to that? What happened to that guitar?
Well, that was also a 58 Strat. They bought via the Fender catalogue. Dad picked it out, and it was the very first Fender Strat in the UK back then, so that's quite exciting. He played that for guitar for years on all the early records, and for some reason, this is now in the hands of Bruce Welch, who was the rhythm guitar player in the Shadows. It's slightly unsure how he's managed to get this guitar and why on earth he still keeps it, because let's be honest, it should be mine. I think it ended up in Cliff's hands at some point, so the story goes. Bruce borrowed it and never gave it back.
And he's looking after it for you.
Well, looking after it, but he now claims it his, which is kind of beyond me, because if you then go back on every records, TV performances, etc., Dad's playing it, and it was ordered for Dad, so Dad's, and of course, therefore, mine.
By default.
Yeah.
Yeah, in which case, yeah.
So I'm taking this one instead.
No, that's it. Fair enough, I reckon. It's just so cool to have such an old guitar in the shop, 1958. I mean, I was born in 1958, but nobody else that works here was, but it's so cool to have an old guitar like this in the shop.
Yeah, it's great and very unusual for a store. And you yourself have a pretty incredible guitar collection, old and rare guitars on the wall here at the shop, which makes it a pretty unique place to come and look at guitars. Can you tell us a bit about the guitars you've collected over the years?
Yeah, it's funny actually, because I never started out, well, I'm not even a guitar player, but I didn't start out thinking I want to have a guitar collection on display in my shop. I just traded in an old Hagstrom guitar one day from a guy who was looking to buy a beginner guitar for his kid, and it came in with an action an inch high and made of red sparkly plastic, and he said, "Is this any good for my kid?" And I said, "No." So I traded it in, and then I traded in an old Yamaha, and then I traded in an old, and all of a sudden now there's probably 40 or 50 guitars hanging around the wall, and yeah, I love them. There's no Fenders or Gibsons on the wall, but I guess they are part of history. They're from the 50s and 60s. There's Japanese, there's some Australian, there's some German, Italian. I just love all the old stuff because it's part of it's part of the history of music, and I find them fascinating, and they make people smile. People come in every day and they look up there and they just smile at them, which is great. So it's I love them.
Not stuff you see in any other stores, really. Just having a rare collection.
You might see vintage Fender or vintage Gibson for sale somewhere, but you don't see a collection of the old collectibles like that. They're not for sale, but but they're fun. Yeah. They're fun, and it makes it a fun place to come to work. Actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But this guitar looks in pretty good nick for a 58, I have to say, because that's a pretty old guitar. So
it is. Looks can be deceiving though, Graham. So if we take that we spin it around, you see there's quite a lot of wear
Yeah.
along here, around there, just on the edges here. A few nice dents in the finish there, quite a few on the top there, and on the back of the neck, if you can see.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Lots of wear along there. So it's, given the age, you're right,
Given the age,
it is,
yeah.
but it's been...
It's a 67-year-old guitar.
And it's been road worn, it's been played, you know,
Yeah.
it's been toured, it hasn't been sitting in a case somewhere, although it has for the last few years, but it's actually been used for a decade, touring hard, recording, so that's what happens.
Yeah, and it's interesting really that you say that, because it reminds me when we first hung it up in the shop, a lot of people looked at it and said, oh, you got a Fender Relic Strat.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a 50s Relic, you know, which is quite fascinating. Then we say, no, it's actually a 58. They go, oh my God, it's an actual 58. So it's quite interesting the emotional impact that seeing something original has, because we do have a lot of beautiful Fender guitars, and this is more worn than that one, but it's actually a brand new guitar, which I have to say a lot of people don't get.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of discussions. People say, well, why would you build a brand new guitar and do that to it? But somehow it creates an emotion straight away. People see it and they project back to the 50s or the 60s and they go, oh, that's so cool. And weirdly, in some ways, we sell the demand for custom shops in Relic, and this is a brand new guitar made to look like it was played since the 50s. The demand for the Relics is higher than the brand new versions of 50s guitars.
I suppose it's the nostalgia, just the rarity of instruments like this or the Gibsons, and not to mention the cost.
Well, that's
is
true,
out of reach to most people, where they love the look, the nostalgia, and go, actually, I could have something that is kind of like that and makes me feel like I've got a vintage guitar without spending, you know, 100 grand or whatever.
Yeah, true, because you'd have to shift the decimal point a few times to buy that, whereas arguably for 5 or 6 grand you could have that, which is got that similar sentiment and emotion to it, hasn't it? Yeah. Oh, well, thanks, Ben. That's great, and you know, lucky to have it here. If you want to come and check it out, it'll be here under glass for the next month or so, I guess. That's if your dad doesn't find out that you've stolen it and left it with us.
Nah, he's easy to pull the wool over his eyes.
Is it? But it's great. It's a nice piece of history, a significant piece of history, and we're very pleased and proud to have it here in the shop. So thanks for organising it.
No worries. If you want to come in, anyone, and play it, just come and ask me, and I'll say that you can't. So yeah, there you go. But what you can do is you can come and feel free to make some offers to me. I won't tell Dad because I'm really in desperate need for a holiday. I'm a bit short, so that's always cool.
Good man.